Hey everyone, welcome to a new series called Genshin What Ifs, where I discuss concepts or ideas about what could be in Genshin Impact. This series will mainly focus on gameplay elements, such as weapon, artifact, or character concepts. With that being said, the first iteration of this series is going to be What If 4 stars had signature weapons. This aims to look at each character's individual kits and provide a weapon concept that is able to synergize with them. Before I cover the 3 characters featured in this video, I want to take a few minutes covering a few disclaimers. I know theory crafting can get very nitpicky, so I want to clear up some things on where I stand on this practice. To get this out of the way, I'm no theory crafting master. While I like to look at stuff like a character's best builds and team comps, I don't delve too deeply in the aspects of min-maxing a character's build or damage output. This naturally means I'll miss the mark on a few concepts, and if you want to correct me on those errors, you're more than welcome to. Just remain respectful. The goal of this series isn't to make a weapon that is the ultimate best in slot for a specific character. Some situations may cause a different weapon to shine brighter in combat due to the utility or buffs they provide. For example, it can be very hard to outdo Favonius weapons in some scenarios, since it provides a good amount of energy for your whole team. Instead, my goal for these concepts is just to make a weapon that synergizes well with the character it's intended for. If it does end up being a character's new best in slot, then that's awesome, but it's not my main goal. With that being said, I do care a lot about balancing and realistic game design. When it comes to making any weapons, here are some general rules I follow for either balancing or simplicity purposes. First, 4-star characters get 4-star weapons, and the value it's rated by is based on its R5 variant, not its R1. Second, an R5 4-star weapon should either be weaker or only slightly better than the R1 5-star weapons I will use for comparisons, so don't expect any of these concepts to be insanely broken. Third, if comparing stats, we will not include artifact substats. In other words, assume that the player rolled very, very badly on their substats, and that we are comparing them at one of their worst states. Fourth, the weapon should be able to synergize with the C0 variant of the character. However, constellations are still taken into account when designing the weapon. Fifth, weapon stats and substat values should be consistent with existing weapons. Weapon passives, on the other hand, are where I let myself take more creative liberties, and have the freedom to create effects that are more strange or niche. Sixth, we assume character and weapon levels are 90, talent levels are at 8, and the characters are running maxed out artifact sets. Okay, now that I've covered the disclaimers, we can get started on the actual ideas. The process is very straightforward. I'll discuss the character and their kit, present the weapon, explain why it would work well with their kit, and also discuss some other candidates that can use the weapon, based on those who can make use of its passive, its substat, or both. I'll also be comparing the concept weapon with some already existing weapons, just to give you an idea on where it stands on a balancing level. For the first episode of What If 4 stars had signature weapons, I thought it would be a good idea if I covered the big 3 of the meta roster, Xingqiu, Bennett, and Xiangling. First off on our list, we have Xingqiu. Xingqiu is one of the best off-field DPS units due to his good personal damage, but also his high Hydra application which lets him enable reactions. Additionally, he provides a damage reduction bonus with his rain swords. This aspect of his kit is actually what inspired the weapon concept. His damage reduction gains an additional bonus based on 20% of his Hydro damage bonus. It has a maximum of 24% bonus reduction, so that would mean to reach the cap, Xingqiu would need to build up a total of 120% Hydro damage bonus. A Hydro Goblet and his A4 passive already provide him with a 66.6% Hydro bonus. There's a few ways to reach close to that cap already, such as running certain artifacts. Nymph's Dream is a set that can grant the user a total of 30% Hydro damage bonus if you gain 3 or more stacks. The problem is that unless you're running an on-field Xingqiu, you can't maintain the stacks longer than the 8-second duration. The other option includes running a 2-piece Heart of Depth and a 2-piece Nymph's Dream to gain an instant 30% bonus, but his damage takes a slight dip. Since most of his damage comes from his burst, 4-piece Emblem is the best set for both his energy needs and burst damage. Now let's get into the signature weapon. This weapon, named Legacy of Guhua, has a base attack of 454 and an energy recharge substat of 61.3%, just like the stats for Sacrificial Sword. The weapon passive, named Calm Before the Storm, states the following. When the equipping character deals elemental burst damage, they will gain a 5 to 10% damage bonus of their corresponding elemental type. This effect can be triggered even if the character is not on the field, and can be triggered every 0.5 seconds. This effect can stack up to 5 times and lasts 8 seconds. In short, when using this weapon, every hit of Xingqiu's burst boosts his hydro damage, which will improve both his personal damage and his damage reduction bonus. Assuming the build is a 4-piece emblem set with a hydro goblet, his hydro bonus should still be 66.6%. An R5 version of this weapon will grant him an extra 50% hydro bonus in total, putting that value to 116.6%, which is just below the 120% limit on his hydro bonus. In theory, if you run your rotations properly, Xingqiu can cast his burst again and refresh the duration before the stacks disappear, allowing for roughly 100% uptime. And if you don't reach the window, building stacks is really easy, so you don't lose out on too much. The main caveat to this weapon is that it doesn't provide the instant cooldown reduction or extra particles that Sacrificial or Favonius provide, which means less energy generation. This goes back to my statement about how a signature weapon isn't always a character's best in slot. Guhua is a great weapon to consider if you have the ER substats to use your burst on cooldown. But if not, then Sac Sword or Favonius may still be the better option. If you can get your burst on cooldown, then using this sword allows you to enjoy more damage and more damage reduction. For other characters that only want the substat, we have Ayaka, Bennett, Jean, Kazuha, Kaya, Chi-Chi, and the Animo or Geo Traveler. While Ayaka, Kaya, and Kazuha can reach the max stats fairly quickly, their short burst durations also mean that they can't maintain uptime on the full buff. Next are characters that can use the passive but don't really want the substat, and the only one here is Ayato. Ayato's burst deals consistent damage and lasts for a very long time, so you can keep nearly 100% uptime on this weapon. But while his burst cost is 80%, you don't generally use ER as a focus stat, and you'd be better off using a damage-based stat for the weapon and finding ER in your substats. Finally, the best alternative characters for this weapon are the ones who can deal multiple instances of burst damage over an extended period and can make use of an ER substat. Electro and Dendro Traveler both have lasting bursts like this, meaning they can easily land the hits to build up stacks and maintain it for a long time. Meanwhile, while Layla doesn't have a lot of damage, she maintains nearly 100% uptime on her burst, allowing her to boost her damage, and you can still run HP % for the shield. If you run her on a damage-based build instead, then this weapon especially becomes a potential candidate. Next up on the list is Bennett. His kit is one that's really easy to build, since the scalings he wants aren't ones that would end up interfering with each other. Since only his weapon and level increase base attack, which is used for his attack bonus, you don't need to heavily consider any attack stats when building your artifacts. This means that you can run an HP-oriented build to help your healing output. For his signature weapon, I thought it would be cool if HP actually improved his damage boost. His weapon, Misfortune's Favor, has a base attack of 510 and an energy recharge of 45.9%. The passive, Will of the Adventurer, states the following. Every 1000 max HP the equipping character has will increase their base attack by 1 to 5. What makes this weapon good is that it introduces a double scaling aspect to Bennett's kit. Building HP artifacts on him will end up boosting his healing and his attack bonus. I would still suggest running an ER Sands to maintain good burst uptime, but if you run HP on the Goblet and Circlet, you can make better use of the passive. I considered HP as an alternate option over ER, since both have their own pros and cons. ER substat on the sword means higher burst uptime, but less attack bonus from the passive, and vice versa for HP. In the end, I felt that keeping his burst up was more important than a higher attack bonus. Something that I feel like I should clarify is that the every 1000 max HP for any character is actually not a cut and dry bonus. Anything in the hundreds and below still count towards the bonus. So for example, if Bennett's HP was something like 30,600, his base attack bonus with this weapon would be 306, not a flat 300. It's nothing game-changing, but if your character falls short of the 1000 HP threshold, you can rest assured knowing you still get some bonus from the smaller numbers. The characters that only care about the ER weapon substat are Jean, Kazuha, Chi-Chi, Xingqiu, and all the Traveler variants. Characters that can make use of the passive are Kirara, Kuki, and Nilou. However, being able to use the passive doesn't equate to it being valuable. Since none of them are very damage oriented, especially on an attack scaling level, it's hard to justify using this sword over others. The only character I believe can use the substat and passive is Layla. She wants ER to maintain her burst uptime, and as an HP scaler she can gain an attack bonus for the night start damage generated by her skill. But like with Kirara, Kuki, and Nilou, her talents aren't really built for damage, so this weapon isn't a great weapon for her either, just a functional one. Finally, we have Xiangling. Most of Xiangling's effectiveness comes from her burst. It allows her to deal a great deal of pyro damage, and also lets her apply pyro to the enemies on every hit. With that being said, energy recharge is one of the most important stats you should have on her. Depending on the team you're running, getting energy back may not be the most difficult thing to accomplish every rotation, but on other teams you may struggle with this. Her signature weapon, Gourmet Tassel, has a base attack of 565 and an energy recharge substat of 30.6. The passive, Most Important Meal, states the following. When the equipping character uses their elemental skill, they will gain the slow burn effect. Every time their elemental skill deals damage to opponents, the slow burn effect gains 1 stack, each one granting a 7.5 to 15% energy recharge bonus. A stack may be obtained every 1 second, with a maximum of 3 stacks, and can be gained when the character is off-field. Once the equipping character uses their elemental burst, all stacks will disappear after 3 seconds. Additionally, 4 elemental particles matching the user's element will be generated. New stacks can be gained immediately after casting your elemental burst, but they will not go into effect until the old stacks disappear. Fun fact, this wall of text is roughly the same length as ocean-hued clams. I wanted to make a weapon that would address Xiangling's energy needs, and give players the opportunity to be more flexible with her build. The R5 version of this weapon alone is capable of bringing her ER to 175.6%. This already puts her ER at a strong value, and this leaves room for you to build her with more offensive stats. For example, the ER Sands you're running could be switched out for an attack Sands. Meanwhile, ER substats can be replaced with artifacts that have attack, crit, or EM. Of course, this weapon is only really good if your Xiangling is in a bad state energy-wise. Gourmet Tassel works similarly to the craftable Inazuma sword Amenoma Kageuchi. Unlike Amenoma, where casting the skill gains a stack, you have to hit opponents with your skill, and instead of casting your burst refunding energy by a flat amount, doing so will generate particles, similar to Fav weapons. I thought it would be interesting where if the weapon user already has enough ER, they can instead use this passive to battery other teammates. Having the stacks linger for 3 seconds after using your burst achieves 2 things. 1. It maintains your ER long enough for your character to collect the particles, if they need to. And 2. If you're running an emblem set, which a lot of Xiangling players run, it allows you to snapshot the extra 45% ER and put it towards your burst damage. Other characters who can use the substat only include Candice, Mika, Rosaria, Shenhe, Toma, and Yunjin. While they can all technically use the passive, most of them have abilities that don't hit multiple times. For Mika and Rosaria, their skills hit twice, but are quicker than the 1 second window. In other words, they also only gain 1 stack per cast. There aren't any characters who can make use of just the passive, but there are characters who can make use of the passive and substat. These include Raiden, Yao Yao, and Zhongli. All of them have skills that last for a while and can hit intermittently. 1 cast of their skills should eventually allow them to build all 3 stacks. And with the ER substat, you can make use of using their burst every rotation. And there you have it! This has been the first episode of my Genshin What If series. Let me know in the comments if you have any critiques or suggestions involving my concepts. You can also let me know if you want me to cover a specific character in the next part. I'll generally cover 3 or 4 concepts per episode, so make sure you leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed my content. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!